Good afternoon again. Apparently, we're trying this again. We had some technical difficulties. Apologies for that. And thank you for your patience if you are still with us. So, again, I am Dr. Holly Hamilton, the Director of Meteorology at the Turks and Caicos Islands Airports Authority, Turks and Caicos Islands National Weather Service, bringing to you the weekly tropical weather briefing for today, Friday, November 15th, which will be valid through next Friday, November 22nd. So jumping right into our surface analysis chart that we look at first, the major features that are impacting the Atlantic region right now would be this high pressure area of high pressure over the North Atlantic. Then bringing it closer to home, we have a low pressure system off the northeast coast of the US here. And then there's a cold front, which then transitions into a stationary front that's extending across the whole Western Atlantic and across the Greater Antilles. And this is Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, and Cuba here. And this is just south of the Turks and Caicos Islands. And then to our northeast, we have another high pressure here, and then another low pressure coming off the Carolinas with a cold front extending across Florida. And then, of course, we have Tropical Storm Sarah down here at the Yucatan Peninsula. So looking at our satellite IR infrared imagery, or loop rather, we see some clearing here. That's where that first high pressure is located over the North Atlantic. We see some convection, so some disorganized thunderstorm activity along that cold front, which then extended across here into that stationary front. Another clearing, just some low-level clouds you see here associated with that high pressure system northeast of us. Turks and Caicos is right here. Then that low pressure that's coming off the Carolinas, you see some convection associated with that. And then that cold front that's coming off across the southeast US and off of Florida. And then finally, Tropical Storm Sarah here in the Yucatan Peninsula. And we see some trailing moisture here up in the upper levels, which is causing some cloudy skies, partly cloudy skies across the Turks and Caicos Islands today. So looking at our tropical weather outlook, we just have Tropical Storm Sarah. Elsewhere, there's no tropical cyclone formation expected for over the next 7 days. So things are quieting down as we near the end of the hurricane season. But not that we should drop our guard, but we're seeing less activity so far this week. So Tropical Storm Sarah, which was located just north of the coast of Honduras. The center is located just north of the coast of Honduras. It's expected, it has maximum sustained winds of 50 miles per hour. It's moving west at 2 miles per hour. It's expected to keep tropical storm intensity going into the weekend as it continues this westward and then northwest movement towards Belize, and then impact the coast of Belize by Sunday. As it moves inland, we're expected to, or it's projected to weaken. And the chance of it re-intensifying or redeveloping once it crosses the Yucatan Peninsula, this is Mexico here, is quite slim right now. That determines how well it keeps intact as it travels overland. So that's Tropical Storm Sarah. So we don't have any other areas of potential development to speak of. So we're moving right into our winds and waves for the next 5 days. So we have that low pressure system that was just coming off the Carolinas. We see that shifting as we look into the future. This is 24 hours. So this is Saturday morning, tomorrow morning. We see that centered in the western North Atlantic with a cold front extending across from the center of this low pressure down across the central and southeast Bahamas. So this is Saturday morning, and by Saturday evening, it's expected that this cold front will push through and across the Turks and Caicos Islands. So we see with this low pressure system, there's some strong winds. The oranges and pinks are 20 to 25, 30 knots. But down here near Turks and Caicos, we'll have some light winds until that cold front push through. So 10 knots or less in the morning. Seas, though, this low pressure, the pressure gradient will cause the seas to build So even though the winds are going to be relatively light, we're going to experience some northerly to northeasterly swells and building our seas up to 5 to 7 feet. And in the evening, we're looking at 7 to 11 feet. So most certainly we'll have a small craft advisory in effect for Saturday. And then going into Sunday morning, we see now that cold front has uh, moved well east. So it has passed over the Turks and Caicos Islands. We see high pressure here, a high pressure ridge beginning to build across the area. Winds will remain light to gentle, but as I indicated from Saturday evening, our seas are going to be pretty high, rough seas going into the weekend, um, peaking on Sunday. So 7 to 11 feet in northerly to northeasterly swells. So that small craft advisory will remain in effect. And going into Monday, we see that high pressure still building and pushing across the area. Winds again will be light. The winds shift to the northeast. So you will see um, you will see a significant, well, we already seeing temperatures are a little bit cooler, so that will stay along that trend as we get that northern air coming through down to the Turks and Caicos Islands. Winds will start to subside slightly on Monday morning. The small craft advisory will still remain in effect due to those swells, those northerly to northeasterly swells. But seas will start to come down to 5 to 7 feet Monday morning. Going into Tuesday, we see that high pressure slowly making its way across eastwards, and the winds again staying light. And now we see that the seas are subsiding to 3 to 5 feet. And then furthermore, on Wednesday morning, we see that high pressure now north of us and seas about 2 to 4 feet. So that's the outlook for the week. Weather should be pretty pleasant once that cold front, and we're not looking at much rain associated with that cold front. So we'll see pleasant weather conditions, just being careful in terms of the marine conditions, boaters and beachgoers, especially along the Atlantic exposures with those swells and rough seas and risk of rip currents. So just be careful going into the weekend and early next week with that. And as usual, we'll join us again next Friday for the next tropical weather briefing. You can follow us on social media on the various platforms that we have to keep up to date with real-time information. We push a public weather forecast 3 times a week on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then, of course, the DDME Alert app. If anything pertinent comes up, make sure you have that on your phone and the notification is on so that you can get the prompts if the event arises. So with that, I wish you a pleasant weekend and see you next week.